We all know that transition sequence is one of the most important pieces to the golf swing, how a player changes direction from backswing to downswing. But we also see a ton of golfers coming to our lessons that have this over-the-top move where the upper body starts before the pelvis. So I'd like to talk to you today about one of the reasons why that's occurring and how we can fix it with your biofeedback. So let's break the swing apart into 3 buckets and why people do what they do in the golf swing. Number one, their physical ability is always a part of why a player swings a club the way that they do. The other would be a motor pattern, and how strong is that player's motor pattern? Have they been doing the same thing for 30 years? If they have, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to break them of that habit, or it'll take just a little bit longer. The third is the concept that the player has in their mind to swing a golf club in a certain way. So that's the one I'd like to talk to you about today, because most of these over-the-top golfers probably have read somewhere along the lines that you've got to stretch your upper body from your lower body as much as you possibly can in the backswing to create power. So that's what they do. They stretch as much as they physically can, but the problem is when they do that, there's no room to start the pelvis going the other direction because they've reached the end of their limitations in terms of the difference between rotation of the upper body and the lower body. So how can we fix that very simply with biofeedback? So if you look behind me, I have 2 biofeedback drills loaded. Rotation at the top first, and then transition of the pelvis after it's gone the other direction. I also have my K angle pulled up at the bottom left down there so we can see the difference between my upper body and my lower body. So the way I would go about training this with your players is get them to set up, okay, with their pelvis square to the calibrated target line, and then from there, have them rotate their upper body as much as they possibly can and look at the difference, okay? From there, dial it back a few degrees. So if they can only physically go, let's say, 45 degrees of difference, well, let's dial it back so the top of their swing, they might have about a 40-degree difference between pelvis and upper body. And then you can get them to get the pelvis going the other direction and lead the way in transition and maybe stretch an additional 5, which you know they have in the tank because you've dialed that difference back by a couple degrees. By doing this, you're going to make it easier for your player to have a good transition sequence and set themselves up for a much better impact position. So to recap, we have 2 drills up there, rotation at the top and then a second drill for pelvis after transition. So just set both of those positions for your player, set guide live for a couple degrees less than they can physically go in the backswing, and then set guide live for where you want that pelvis after transition and after it's stretched a couple extra degrees, and watch your player's transition sequence go in order immediately. Hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, comment below. Thanks.